John McMullen covers the Eagles for 97.3 ESPN.com, and he is with us now as we get ready to preview this matchup, and we'll do some NFL news and notes with John from today's pigskin.com as well. John, what's happening, pal?
Hey, guys.
Wish you were here, man. It's hot outside. There's a lot of flies biting us. We love it. We're happy that we wish you were here with us.
Yeah, I can enjoy the flies. You got to bring me off. If you're going to be outside, you got to understand you got to bring me off.
It's like a July day out here. It's like the height of the summer. But, hey, obviously the NFL doesn't pause for hot weather. They are ready to go. They played last night, and the Eagles will open up their season against the Browns. A lot of interesting back and forth with this game, with the Browns and the Eagles trade. Basically, the Browns suggesting that they felt that Wentz was not worthy of the number 2 overall pick here. We've got a couple interesting sidebars as we get ready for this game on Sunday.
Yeah, the Browns have been very, very honest, and you don't see that too often in the NFL any longer, where guys are willing to go on the record and give you the real opinion. And that's exactly what Paul D. Podesta did. It's what Hugh Jackson did. They don't believe Carson Wentz is, as they describe it, a future top 20 quarterback in this league. And top 20 isn't exactly elite. So there's no way to take it other than it being an insult. And I think from a game standpoint, obviously the Eagles and Browns aren't a traditional rival by any stretch of the imagination, but that has put a little more juice in this. And it certainly, I don't think Carson Wentz needed any extra sort of realization to get ready for this game, but he can't help but want to prove them wrong. And I think that is something that makes this game a little more exciting.
Hey, there's something you wrote at 97.3 ESPN.com that kind of piles on a little bit more, and that is the fact that the Browns have kind of come out and said, not only do we think he's not a top 20 player or quarterback in this league, but that they think he has a slow release, and they're going to try to take advantage of that on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, some of that honesty, and that was the rookie defensive lineman Carl Nassib from Penn State saying that. And it kind of gives you a look into the thought process of Hugh Jackson and what he believes in Carson Wentz as a quarterback, and the fact of one of the problems. And by the way, I've seen this in training camp. It's completely true, but it's hardly rare amongst young quarterbacks. Often they have trouble deciphering information, and that leads to them holding on to the football a little bit too long. And I think that's what's going on with Carson. But that's not strange. The bad part is that would be consistent moving forward, and we'll just have to see how that shakes out.
John, you mentioned training camp. During training camp, I know one of the things that people were worried about or tweeting about was a wobbly ball or a ball that shook a little. Who's specifically working with Carson to try and improve his mechanics?
Well, one of the things about the Eagles, and they set this thing up very well, if you think about their coaching staff, the head coach is a former quarterback, the offensive coordinator is a former quarterback, and the quarterback's coach is a former quarterback. So there's a lot of guys in that organization who understand how to play that position. Now, you can look at that both ways. The Eagles have a lot of people who can give them good information, but there's a theory that you can overload somebody, and there's too many chefs in the kitchen, so to speak, and everybody has a different opinion. And we'll see how that works out for the Eagles in the long run. But Carson, hey, he's got a lot of people to be a sounding board in this organization. I don't think that aspect of it will hurt him. The one thing, Doug Peterson, though, no matter what you say about Carson, whether you talk about the slow release that came out today or you talk about that wobbly ball you mentioned, Pete, he blames everything on mechanics. And that's understandable because one of the issues with him has been footwork coming from North Dakota State in the lower level at college. But you can't blame everything on mechanics. And at some point, if these things continue, you have to start to put up a red flag. But I think it's way too early for that.
John, one thing is for sure, this Cleveland team's not a playoff team. And in fact, they might be one of the worst teams in the league. The fact that there are people concerned this week, that's not a good sign for if you're an Eagles fan. I mean, is this an indication of, nationally what people think of Philadelphia, that this is a team that is in for a long year?
Yeah, I mean, most people nationally don't think the Eagles are very good. There's no question about that.
Do they know that? I mean, is that something that they have kind of said, like, we understand that? Like, are they taking that personal?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Matthews said it, and he compared to his said it yesterday. He compared it to his days at Vanderbilt, which is obviously in the SEC, and they don't have much luck when they're playing the Alabamas of the world. So he kind of joked about it and said people would go to the Vandy games to study. So he's used to being overlooked, and they're kind of embracing it. Of course, they don't like it, especially the defensive side of the ball, because I think they think they have a chance to be really, really good. And if they stay relatively healthy, I kind of agree with that. But a lot of it comes to the fact that you're trying to start a rookie quarterback from day one. And not only that, but you're trying to start a rookie quarterback from day one who's missed the vast majority of the preseason. So that eliminated a lot of his reps. So people put 2 and 2 together. And I don't think it's unfair to say they expect Carson Wentz to struggle. I do also. But against the Cleveland Browns, as you mentioned, Mike, this might be the least talented team in football. I expect them to win this game.
Hey, the fact, I was talking on the show the other day about, Trevor Siemian. It wasn't that I was saying he stinks or can't play. It was more, if he goes out and plays well on Thursday night, here's a guy with very little track record, very little pedigree, no NFL experience. He went out and played a pretty good game last night. I don't think he played great. I don't think he was awful. He won the game, and I thought he was manageable. Should that give Eagles fans a little, reason for some hope? Okay, here's a guy that's virtually a rookie and went out there and won a game. I looked at it as a way to say, look, and I thought what the Broncos did with Siemian last night was almost a recipe for what Philadelphia should be doing with Wentz. Is the defense, have him stay in the game, don't ask him to do a whole heck of a lot. Maybe he could do a little bit more than Siemian, but the fact that he's mobile and kind of keep it simple. I thought last night's game, if you're Philly, the Denver blueprint is the way you want to follow.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I mean, that's the formula you want. Now, Denver's defense might be the best in football. So while I think the Eagles have a lot of potential on that side of the ball, you can't really compare them to Denver, certainly not yet. But that's the way you got to go about it with a young quarterback. The problem is, as you saw about the nature of that game, the margin for error is very, very small. If there wasn't a bad snap, Graham, probably makes that field goal, and Denver loses the game. So that's what you're talking about, a razor-thin margin of error when you're playing with a young quarterback and you don't put a lot on his plate. And I think you saw that in Denver, and that's going to be the formula in Philadelphia, and that's how it's going to be most weeks is, hey, it's going to be most NFL games, let's face it, 4 or 5 plays tend to decide them, but even more so with a young quarterback because there's going to be more miscues, more faux pas, and that's just something you understand, and that's why coaches do limit what they do in any particular offense, not just Carson Wentz.
Hey, John, Mike and I got into a little debate, if you will, yesterday about the fullback position and does it still exist in the NFL. And then last night, Janovich goes and scores for Denver on the fullback scores for Denver. I texted Mike right away, the fullback. I guess, has that come up with the Eagles offense in relation to the fullback? And will they have one? How will they use it?
Well, Doug likes the position, but they don't have a natural fullback, obviously. And you mentioned, you saw in Denver, I mean, Carolina was completely taken by surprise, and that's why that play worked. Because you do see the fullback dive so few times now in the NFL, and most teams don't even use a fullback. But Doug wants to get to the point where he does have one. Chris Pantali looked like he was going to be the fullback early in camp, but he just didn't play well down the stretch of the preseason. And they'll use Trey Burton. Unfortunately, Trey hurt his calf in practice today, and he's now questionable. So he was added to the injury report late. But that's not his strength as a blocker. They've used Dylan Gordon, a rookie offensive lineman who played tight end at LSU. They've used him at fullback in short yardage situations. You might see that kind of thing. They signed Carson Wentz as fullback from North Dakota State on the practice squad, and they have an extra roster spot, so who knows? He could be in the mix down. Certainly not this week, but later in the season. Eventually, he wants to get to the point like they were in Kansas City, and they have a legitimate fullback who's going to be on the field, not a lot, but probably 20% of the time. But they're not there yet because they don't have that player.
And then how about the running backs then, if we'll stay in the backfield? As Doug talked about the rotation and who's the one and who's the two and how many guys he'll play.
Well, it's going to be a committee as we expected, but Ryan Matthews is the lead back, and he's going to get the majority of the touches. Doug called Darren Sproles second on the depth chart, but he's not really second as far as he's going to be the third down back. So it comes down to who gets the carries to give Ryan Matthews a blow. And it's pretty clear that Kenyon Barner, because of Wendell Smallwood's issues in training camp, not only early he had a quad, then he had a concussion, he just missed too much time. So later in the season, Wendell might be have more of an impact in the backfield. But early on, it's going to be Kenyon Barner spelling Ryan Matthews, and that's going to be the committee. But talked about it a little bit with Mike yesterday. Ryan Matthews might be the most important player in this game because he's facing a team with a weak defense, a weak front seven. You want to scale back Carson Wentz. You don't want to put a lot on his plate. The best way to do that is to get a solid running game going, and that's going to be on the shoulders of Ryan Matthews.
John, where's a spot that concerns you for Sunday? Where's an area that Cleveland does have a strength that Philadelphia might have a weakness?
I don't know if it's a weakness for Philadelphia, but the left side of the Browns' offensive line is very good. Not only Joe Thomas, but also Joe Bitonio is a really good left guard. So that could be difficult for the Eagles. And also Joe Hayden is probably their best defensive player. He's healthy. He wasn't for the majority of last season. But if you think about the Eagles, if they decide that they want to shut down Jordan Matthews, for instance, they could put Joe Hayden on him, and that should be it. I mean, he could shut down any receiver the Eagles have. So that might make things a little bit difficult for Carson, especially if he starts staring down receivers as young quarterbacks tend to do.
John, Peterson did talk about DGB. I know we talked a little bit about that yesterday. What did he say Darrell Green Beckham's role could be on Sunday?
Well, he's going to play because he's so talented, but he's going to have a more limited role than they want for him eventually because he doesn't know the entire offense. And they're going to limit him to certain routes, not only in the passing game, but also as far as run blocking and his responsibilities there. I would imagine when they're in the red zone, though, they're going to try to use him. And they're going to try to throw the fade pass. And you saw it in the preseason. A 6'5", 240-pound guy, you just throw it up. And it's a play that's really, really difficult to defend. So I expect the Eagles to use him in the red zone a significant amount of time.
Yeah, and, the Browns have 3 DBs on that roster. They're 5'11" or shorter. So this could be a big DGB type of game even if they just put a small little package in for him, right? I mean, get him in that red zone. That might be where we see him.
He's definitely going to play, yeah. And even if you have a Joe Hayden, who I said is a tremendous corner when he's healthy, a lot of times you can have perfect coverage on that type of pattern. There's nothing you can do when the receiver's 6'5". So
yeah,
that's one of those things where even when he's covered, he's not covered. And it's something, if Carson throws the ball correctly in the red zone, it's going to result in a touchdown. And the Eagles understand that. The Eagles know what they have. And he's going to be limited, as I said, from 20 to 20 because he doesn't know a lot of the offense. But once they get inside the red zone, the Eagles have to use him. And they'd be dumb not to use him. And the one thing about this coaching staff is they've proven that they understand the strengths of their players, and they tend to call plays to utilize them. And I expect that with DGB.
All right, John, yesterday you had your pick on the website, 973ESPN.com, and based on the traffic numbers that we looked at over there yesterday, a lot of people were very interested to see what your pick was. But for those of the people out there who did not see what your pick was, let's get a little insight from you on how you see this game going and the final score.
Well, I think the Eagles will probably get a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, or at least set up a touchdown, whether it's a return that brings it on a short field. And I think that'll help them. Again, I mentioned Cleveland is probably the least talented team from 1 through 53 in the NFL. So I think Philadelphia's going to win this game. I haven't taken it 23-17, but I do think it'll be a little closer because you are going to have hiccups with a rookie quarterback starting his first NFL game who didn't have a lot of repetitions in the preseason. So I think it's going to be more difficult than people might expect, but I expect the Eagles to come out with the win.
All right, John has 23-17 Philadelphia. We had Josh Pawnell earlier with 2017 Philly, and Casey Joyner told us that he has Cleveland in a close game over Philadelphia. We'll have my pick coming up. Pete will give you his pick as well, and more coverage on the Eagles and Browns on this Friday from ShopRite in Summers Point. John, enjoy the game. I know John and Scott Grayson will both be live on Sunday for 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, guys. Stay away from the flies.